I think we're at a significant event here, and really appreciate your attendance to this. It was back in 2015 that we actually was, yeah, summer of 2017, I believe that we, no, it was the summer of 2014 that we joined the Unison Consortium. But in 2015, the summer of 2015, we broke out DiaLOG as a governance group. And since that time, I cannot recall a time when we've gotten our two committees together for a discussion like this. So maybe it's been long overdue. But one of the reasons we talked about coming together as two groups was to refine interactions between our governance groups, making sure that we understood each other and how we might help each other out. We also thought it'd be a good time to sync up. And we wanted to acknowledge that some people attend both of our governance committee meetings. I know that several of the business analysts attend both DiaLOG platform in support of a lot of the agenda items we do there, as well as serve on the learning analytics side. And there may be other overlap, but wanted to acknowledge all governance members here today and just we appreciate your service. So thank you. But we're also here today to take advantage of an opportunity potentially that might change up the status quo for the better. So that's where we're gathering together to talk about specifically exploring synthetic Unison data platform data as the focus of this meeting. And so at this point in time, I will ask the Unison staff to introduce themselves. Maybe Bart, you want to go first and then the rest of the team?
Sure. Thanks, Jeff. Great to see so many familiar faces and new faces here today. So my name is Bart Purcell. I'm the interim CEO at Unison. I've been at Unison for a little over 2 years now. And before joining Unison, I was at Penn State for 22 years. And I like to say I was Unison adjacent. So I was the Unison data platform data steward and did a lot of work with UDP data while at Penn State. Nice to see everyone. James, you want to go next?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm James Russell. I am the interim CTO for Unison. Been here about just over 3 years and spent about close to 30 in IT at Indiana University before coming to Unison. And I'll just say as a footnote before I pass it on to Kyle that synthetic data is something we're really excited about. It opens the doors in so many ways. And one of our challenges is to show what is possible. And when you're dealing with the replete PII that we have in the UDP, it's very difficult to show current members, new members, what's possible. And so to me, that is the sort of key piece here is that it really opens us up. So with that, I'll pass it on to Kyle.
Thanks, James. Hi, everyone. My name is Kyle Unruh. I'm the interim director of data services and solutions. I promise not everyone at Unison is interim. It's just, our previous CEO, Kathy, retired, so we've had a little bit of a shakeup. But it's all been great. Great to be here. I'm excited to talk about synthetic data. And I'll pass it off to Sarah.
Yeah, I'm Sarah. I'm the data analyst at Unison. I've been here for a little over 2 years. And as James and Kyle have said, we're really excited about synthetic data and excited about this discussion today. So it's great to be here.
Cool. Thank you all for sharing a little history here too. The University of Minnesota joined the Unison Consortium back in 2014. Currently, there are 14 schools participate or are members of Unison of similar size to the University of Minnesota and complexity. We started contributing data to the Unison data platform back in 2019, academic year 2019. And ever since then, we've been refining it and building it out. So now it is used commonly for troubleshooting and other analyses. And we're hoping to take that to the next level by some of the stuff we're going to be discussing today. With that, I know we have several new members on the platform committee. There might be some on the learning analytics committee who don't even know what the Unison data platform is. So I'm going to try to give you a 2-minute synopsis of that, and Unison staff, please correct me if there's something I omit. But basically, the Unison data platform ingests data from Canvas, as well as PeopleSoft at the University of Minnesota, and third-party learning tools. it transforms that data after it receives it, using a common data model, and that model makes sure that we're optimizing the data for reporting and use in a way that'd be hard to do if we didn't have the platform available to us. Probably something University of Minnesota wouldn't be able to do on its own, but together with the staff that you're interacting with today, as well as the other universities, it's possible. So with that, did I miss anything important? Otherwise, we'll move on.
Good job, Jeff. You've been
All right,
here a
thanks.
while, clearly. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. Appreciate that. So what is synthetic data? And again, I'm going to just have some high level remarks here, then turn it over to the Unison people to kind of add some color. But I think of it as manufactured data that's representative of the real Unison data platform. To our knowledge, the first use of it was at the fall 2023 hackathon at Colorado State. Drew LaChapelle on our team and Andy Yu attended that hackathon. So they were exposed to the data there for the first time. We like to think of it as a safe sandbox that can be used to explore data trends and collaborate without privacy concerns. My understanding is it's flexible. It can be regenerated with different characteristics. So what I did here was list some links to the Unison Common Data Model Data Dictionary, which you can see what fields are provided in the platform, also how data from Canvas is converted to the Unison Common Data through the Unison Common Data Model, as well as data mart documentation. But I'd love to have the Unison folks tell us a little bit more about this. Remember, there's some people here who've never heard about the Unison data platform, and there's some that have used it for quite extensively. They're on the side of using it. And then earlier today, one last question was, our business analysts were saying, how realistic is this synthetic data? Is it high level or is it deep? And what might it be used for? So I'd like to turn it over to the Unison folks to help us out there.
Yeah. I may kick us off, and then any other Unison folks can chime in, or if I want any clarifications that might need to happen. So I think to build on Jeff's good overview of Unison and the UDP, the way I think about it is the Unison data platform is a tool agnostic view of learners, learning environments, and learning processes. So we like to ingest data from SIS, LMS, teaching and learning tools, really whatever is on the front lines of education, the things that students interact with and where their behaviors are recorded. We want to be able to ingest that data into a single place to help learning analytics and learning science. Some people also talk about the UDP as like the world's largest learning laboratory. I think it's another way to look at it. And part of what we do is we take that learning tool data and we transform it into a common schema that we call the Unison Common Data Model. There's also caliper events, which for our discussion today, just know that there are standards that we enforce in order to make data from different tools look the same. Have the same names for academic terms, have the same names for assignments, like different fields, due dates, all that. Try to align into a single schema. That's one of the things that the Unison Common Data Model does and the UDP tries to present to folks. With that, though, there's a lot of PII information that gets fed through. A lot of that is up to the institution. They have a comfort level for what PII they can send, but we can ingest like names of students. We do know ethnicities, or can know ethnicities. We can know where students, where their high school was. Like there's a lot of information about students that we can see, as well as, the body of discussion posts. So if someone says, "Hey, Brandon," we can see that they're talking to someone named Brandon there. So we do, in analyses like security, privacy, and governance are really important. And so the UDP has all this PII data, and for approved audiences, it's fine. And remember, approved use cases, that's fine. However, for some more sensitive use cases or broader audiences, we need other mechanisms to engage with teaching and learning data without the risk of identifying students. And historically, we've gone through anonymization processes, which is different than synthetic data we're talking about here. Anonymization is still based off of the real data of your institution, but we selectively remove fields or obscure data that could identify students. So it starts with real data and is kind of redacted in that way. How synthetic data is different is we look across the Unison consortium and we look at distribution of values across different tables. So grade distribution is one. How many A's, B's, C's, D's, and withdrawals or DFWs do we see across courses? What's that distribution across the consortium? Number of files and courses, number of discussion posts, number of replies and discussion posts. We have about 100 plus distributions that we're tracking across our consortium, and we use that as a basis for the synthetic data instead of anonymizing. And what we do is we have a script that runs, and row by row, it generates students, and it generates files, it generates courses, it generates everything from scratch based off of informed distributions. So synthetic data, in my mind, is the safest way to initially consume UDP data because it is not based off of any real students, but the data should be realistic and look like real courses and real outcomes that could exist. So it's great for prototyping. It's great for talking across institutional lines. It's great for governance conversations because it's an incredibly safe data set to use. And it's a good common baseline to do learning analytics prototyping, app development, and even more. And that's why we're excited to be here today, is because we want to hear even more ideas for how a super safe but realistic data set could be used at Minnesota. That's just kind of my initial thoughts. Sarah, James, Bart, is there anything that you would add to that? Or anything to clarify?
Just, I guess one thing that we've been talking about synthetic data for about a year now, I think, since we've been working on this. And thinking back, we maybe should have named it differently because it's, it's fake data, it's demo data, right? These are, I think, some of the names that other people have sort of started to call it, which makes a lot of sense to us, right? As Kyle explained it, anonymization is not a piece of creating synthetic data. It's really sort of looking at distributions in the UDP and then fabricating that data. And one of the nice things, and this is looking back at my days as a data steward at Penn State, is people would knock on my virtual door and say, "Hey, Bart, I understand that you have SIS data as well as Canvas data and the Unison data platform. We'd like access to that." And as a data steward, I would have to say, well, first they need to understand what your use case is. What are you trying to do? And they'd come back and say, we don't know yet. We need to see the data first, right? And you're in this sort of chicken and the egg situation where, that gets kind of awkward. Now we have a way around that, right? Now it's, hey, here's the synthetic data. It's not Minnesota's data, but you'll get a sense, right? And it's in the environment that the UDP lives in. It looks like the UDP. It's in BigQuery, right? So people can get used to using it and even training, right, with the synthetic data set. And the use cases just keep emerging. One of the Unison member wants to use synthetic data for interviews with data scientists, which is a great use case. Hackathons are kind of an obvious use case. Prototyping in a safe environment, good use case. So it's really exciting because we just see more and more use cases kind of organically coming up that this fits really well. So it's exciting to be here and start to hear a little bit about what you all are thinking when it comes to synthetic data.
Thank you. So again, it sounds like it's manufactured data, and you've talked about some things you hope to do in terms of configurability of it. Is it you want to mention anything right now, or is that something you want to save till later? I don't want to put you on the spot.
We can talk about it now. This is still a work in progress. What we have kind of ready is what we showed at the hackathon, which is kind of a static data set. It's got 6 terms, 3 fall terms, 3 spring terms, an FTE size of 10,000. And that's kind of the main configuration parameter that we work with now, is just how big of a university do you want to synthetically generate data for? But our plans are beyond that. The reason why I say that is, like, in the short term, if Minnesota wants to get their hands on it, it would be that static 10,000 FTE data set. One of the recent improvements we've made is an ability to have the data marts. So the same data marts that run on top of your production UDP are now synthetically generated as well through that same data set. So it's like an extra step that we tack on the end, which is creating the data marts. So to Bart's point, we want the environment that the synthetic data lives to look as identical to your production environment as possible. And so that includes the data marts. We want to make sure that those are delivered there. Longer term, what we would like to do is have some sort of front end interface to generate synthetic data for some sort of end user use, like at will sort of consumption. That one would probably be less of a let's generate a full 10,000 or 50,000 FTE institution, and probably more configurable, like I want a selection of 30 courses, perhaps, with such and such enrollment. And then you can have different sliders for like DFW probabilities or certain other metrics or distributions that you might want to see, like a set of courses that have lower grades and a set of courses that have higher grades, or certain aspects like that. So we're moving more towards that sort of model in parallel to improving the distributions and just how the synthetic data is generated for a full institution. So it's kind of like two different parallel work streams that we're kind of going down now. But it is consumable, but it is just that static data set currently.
Perfect. That's great. That's just the right level of detail. Thank you so much.
Okay, cool. Sometimes it's just rambling for me, so that's good.
No, you're good. You're good. We really appreciate it. Bart, you jumped in and talked about some of these things, but I think what some of the things that Kara and Emily and Lauren and I discussed coming into this were we could see some benefits by increasing the access to data from a few now that have access to the whole platform, which we kind of, Bart alluded to, that you have to, in some cases, over provision people with access to the entire platform. Now, with the safety of synthetic data, many people can have access to it based on their needs. Growth opportunities for people who want to learn about data reporting in a safe environment, as well as if we can use, grow in the visualization area as well with the synthetic data. Being able to prototype with synthetic data first before hitting it up against the real data. Potentially, governance could work on data projects between meetings to advance certain topics they want to be working on. That was not possible with the real data before. And then also increasing involvement out to colleges and campuses for them to understand trends and support their organization by getting some of their staff involved without necessarily having to go through the steward process to get access to the real data. Possible breakthroughs using synthetic data. I was thinking about this morning, and I think of synthetic data as unfettered data, meaning it's uninhibited and unrestrained. We don't often get a chance to do that at the university. So I'm challenging us right now as we go into brainstorming to think of synthetic data as a place where we have freedom to suspend our knowledge of real data limitations, at least for a while, to imagine what's possible without that knowledge of, hey, this is going to take a lot of work, or this data field is not precise enough, or it's undefined, but being able to kind of explore with that freedom. And then also, Bart, you mentioned it too, the chicken and egg discussion. To some extent, it allows us to break through by saying, yes, we can philosophize about the questions we want, but then we can actually go look at the synthetic data to say, is that really what we're thinking we want, or vice versa? Let's look at the data, and it produces some questions. So hopefully we can break through that barrier we have today by using the synthetic data.